San Sebastián de Donostia is a coastal city and municipality located in the Basque Autonomous Community, Spain. It lies on the coast of the Bay of Biscay, 20 kilometers from the French border. The capital city of Gipuzkoa. The municipality's population is 186,409, with its metropolitan area reaching 436,500. Locals call themselves donostiarra, both in Spanish and Basque. The main economic activities are commerce and tourism, and it is one of the most famous tourist destinations in Spain. Despite the city's small size, events such as the San Sebastián International Film Festival have given it an international dimension. San Sebastián, along with Wrocław, Poland, is the European Capital of Culture in 2016. Etymology. In spite of appearances, both the Basque form Donostia and the Spanish form San Sebastián have the same meaning of St. Sebastian. The donia, doni element in Basque place name signifies saint, and is derived from Latin domini. The second part of Donostia contains a shortened form of the saint's name. There are two hypotheses regarding the evolution of the Basque name. One says it was Don Sebastián and Donostiarra and Donostia and donostiarra and Donostia. The other one says it was Don Sebastián and Don Sebastián and Don Sebastián Donostia and Donostia and donostiarra and Donostia. Geography. The city is in the north of the Basque Country, on the southern coast of the Bay of Biscay. San Sebastián's picturesque shoreline makes it a popular beach resort. The seaside environment is enhanced by hilly surroundings that are easily accessible, i.e. Urgel, romantic Mantulia extending east to Pasar, Mantudara rising proud far on the south, and Igeldo, overlooking the bay from the west. The city sits at the mouth of the river Urumea, Donostia having been built to a large extent over the river's wetlands during the last 2 centuries. In fact, the city centre and the districts of Amara Berry and Ribeiras de Loyola lie on such terrain, and the former bed of the river, diverted to its current canalized course in the first half of the 20th century. Parts of the city, as a result of Donostia's sprawling in all directions, first into the flatlands shaped by the river Urumea and later up the hills. New districts arose after the walls of the city were demolished in 1863. The first expansion of the old town stretched out to the river's mouth, on the old quarter called Zuriana. The orthogonal layout nowadays making up the city centre was built up to 1914 much in tune with the Parisian Haussmannian style. The arcades of the Buenpaste Square were fashioned after the ones of the Rue de Rivoli, with the Maria Cristina Bridge being inspired by the Pont Alexandre III that spans the Seine. The Estación del Norte train station standing right across the bridge was inaugurated in 1864 just after the arrival of the railway to San Sebastián, with its metallic roof being designed by Gustave Eiffel. Parte Vieja. The Parte Vieja is the traditional core area of the city, and was surrounded by walls up to 1863, when they were demolished so as to occupy the stretch of sand and land that connected the town to the mainland. The old town is divided in 2 parishes relating to the Santa Maria and San Vicente churches, the inhabitants belonging to the former being dubbed traditionally Joxamaritaric, while those attached to the latter are referred to as Coxcaroc. Historically, the Coxcaroc up to the early 18th century were largely Gascon-speaking inhabitants, especially after the end of Franco's dictatorship. Scores of bars sprang up all over the old part, which are very popular with the youth and the tourists, although not as much with the local residents. Most current buildings trace back to the 19th century, erected thanks to the concerted effort and determination of the town dwellers after the 1813 destruction of the town by the Allied Anglo-Portuguese troops. There is a small fishing and recreation port, with two-floor picturesque houses lined under the front wall of the Mount Urgel. Yet these houses are relatively new, resulting from the demilitarization of the hill, sold to the city council by the Ministry of War in 1924. Antigua. This part stands at the west side of the city beyond the Miramar Palace. It is arguably the first population nucleus, even before the land at the foot of Urgel was settled. A monastery of San Sebastián el Antiguo is attested in documents at the time of the foundation. At the mid-19th century, industry developed, the nucleus coming to be populated by workers. Industry has since been replaced by services and the tourist sector. The Martia Calle provides the main access for the district. Amara Zafara, or Old Amara, named after the farmhouse Amara. It has eventually merged with the city centre to a large extent, since former Amara lay on the marshes at the left of the river Urumaia. The core of this district is the EASO Plaza, with the railway terminal of Euskotren enclosing the square at its south. Amara Berry. This city expansion to the south came about as of the 1940s, after the works to canalize the river were achieved. Nowadays the name Amara usually applies to this sector, the newer district having overshadowed the original nucleus both in size and population. The district harbors the main road entrance to the city, with Donostia's central bus station being located between the roundabout and the river. Facilities of many state-run agencies were established here, and presently Amara's buildings house many business offices. The district revolves around the axis of Avenida Sancho El Sabio and Avenida de Madrid. Gross. The district is built on the sandy terrain across the river. The Gross's Uriola surf beach by the river's mouth bears witness to the type of soil. In the 19th century, shanties and workshops started to dot the area, Thomas Gross being one of its main proprietors, as well as providing the name for this part of the city. The area held the former monumental bullring chauffeur, demolished in 1973, on a site currently occupied by a housing estate. The district shows a dynamic commercial activity, recently boosted by the presence of the Cursal Congress Center by the beach. One of the newest parts in the city, it kept a rural air until not long ago. The post-war city council bought the quaint compound of the Palace for the use of Francisco Franco in 1940, right after the conclusion of the Civil War. The place in turn became the summer residence for the dictator up to 1975. Nowadays home to the Baker Nechera Peace Memorial House. Egia, stemming from Egia, is a popular district of Donostia on the right side of the Urumaia beyond the train station. At the beginning of the 20th century, a patch of land by the railway started to be used as a football pitch, eventually turning into the official stadium of the local team Real Sociedad, before it was transferred in the 1990s to Anita, south of Amara Berry. The former tobacco factory building Tabacalera, which has been converted into a contemporary culture center, conjures up the former industrial past of the area. Right opposite to this building lies the Cristina Ania Park, a public compound with a botanic vocation. Egia holds the city cemetery, Polo, at the northeast fringes of the district, stretching out to south in Texorondo. In Texorondo, this part is a large district to the east of the city. The original nucleus lies between the railway and the Atagarieta Avenue, where still today the farmhouse in Texorondos are. Declared national monument, is situated since the mid-17th century. The railway cuts across the district, the southern side being the fruit of the heavy development undergone in the area during the immigration years of the 1950s and 1960s. In addition, further housing estates have been built up more recently south beyond the N1, E5, E80, E70 ring road. The police force Guardia Civil runs controversial barracks there. Alza is the easternmost district of San Sebastian along with Bide-Beata and Trint Zerpi. It was but a quaint village comprising scattered farmhouses and a small nucleus a century ago. Yet on the arrival of thousands of immigrants in the 1960s and 1970s, a rapid and chaotic housing and building activity ensued, resulting in a maze of grey landscape of skyscrapers and 32,531 inhabitants crammed in them. The figure is 20,000 as of 2013. Ibaglieta stands on the former location for various factories of San Sebastian, with the buildings of the old industrial estate being demolished in the late 20th century. The leveling of this large flat area paved the ground for a carefully planned modern and elegant housing estate, featuring a new university campus for the public University of the Basque Country and institutions such as the Donostia International Physics Center and the Nanotechnology Center. A stream called Comporta flows down along the eastern side of the area, but it was canalized under the ground almost all along to its mouth on the bay, pushed by urban building pressure. It lies by the Euromare at the southeast end of the city. It comprises a small patch of detached houses and a core area of 6 odd-floor buildings. The district has recently gone through a major makeover, with works finishing in 2008. The road access coming from important industrial areas crosses the district heading downtown. A military base stands across the river, home to an uprising in 1936. Attempts by the city council to close it have been unsuccessful so far. Ribeiras de Loyola new modern district erected in the 2000s next to the city's inner bypass and south road entrance to Donostia. A pedestrian bridge spans the Euromare River onto the Cristina Rania Park. Matuten. The Matuten district bordering to the south on the town of Astigarraga comes next to Loyola in the south direction. This part of the city features an industrial area, a football pitch for lower leagues, a disused vocational training building and enclosure, as well as a prison much in decay and due to be transferred soon to a new location, probably in the municipality's exclave of Zubieta. While this option is coming in for much opposition, Zubieta, the exclave Zubieta, was a picturesque old village up to recent years, with a bunch of houses, a unique handball pitch and a church. Yet it has undergone a great urban development, which has rendered the location a built-up area with paved streets and GUI equipment. 2 contested projects are underway to build a solid waste incinerator and a prison nearby. Historically, neighbors from Donostia held a meeting at a house in the former village in the wake of the 1813 burning, in order to decide the reconstruction of the town. Climate. San Sebastian features an oceanic climate with warm, but not hot summers, and cool but not cold winters. Like many cities with this climate, San Sebastian typically experiences cloudy or overcast conditions for the majority of the year, typically with some precipitation. The city averages roughly 1,650 millimeters of precipitation annually, which is fairly evenly spread throughout the year. However, the city is somewhat drier and noticeably sunnier in the summer months, experiencing on average approximately 100 millimeters of precipitation during those months. Average temperatures range from 8.9 degrees Celsius in January to 21.5 degrees Celsius in August. History. Prehistory. The first evidence of human stationary presence in the current city is the settlement of Ametzagana, between South Intexorondo and Astigarraga. The unearthed remains, such as carved stone used as knives to cut animal skin, date from 24,000 to 22,000 BC. The open-air findings of the Upper Paleolithic have revealed that the settlers were hunters and Homo sapiens, besides pointing to a much colder climate at the time. Ancient age. San Sebastian is thought to have been in the territory of the Varduli in Roman times. 10 kilometers east of the current city lay the Basque Roman town of Oyaso, which was for a long time wrongly identified with San Sebastian. Middle Age. After a long period of silence in evidence, in 1014 the monastery of St. Sebastian, with its apple orchards, located in the term of Hernani, is donated to the Abbey of Lea by Sancho III of Pamplona. By 1181, the city is chartered by King Sancho VI of Pamplona on the site of Izurum, having jurisdiction over all the territory between the rivers Oria and Bidasoa. In 1200, the city was conquered by Castile, whose King Alfonso VIII confirmed its charter, but the Kingdom of Navarre was deprived of its main direct access out to the sea. Perhaps as soon as 1204, the city nucleus at the foot of Urgell started to be populated with Gascon-speaking colonizers from Bayonne and beyond, who left an important imprint in the city's identity in the centuries to come. In 1265, the use of the city as a seaport is granted to Navarre as part of a wedding pact. A large quantity of Gascons inhabiting the town favored the development of trade with other European ports and Gascony. The city steered clear of the destructive War of the Bands in Gipuzkoa, the only town in doing so in the territory. In fact, the town only joined Gipuzkoa in 1459 after the war came to an end. Up to the 16th century, Donostia remained mostly out of wars, but by the beginning of the 15th century, a line of walls of simple construction is attested encircling the town. The last chapter of the town in the Middle Ages was brought about by a fire that devastated Donostia in 1489. After burning to the ground, the town began a new renaissance by building up mainly on stone instead of bare timber. Modern age. The advent of the modern age brought a period of instability and war for the city. After the fall of Navarre, new state boundaries started to be drawn that left Donostia at the forefront of the Spanish border with France. New chunky and more sophisticated walls were erected and the town got involved in the wars engaged between Spain and France on the aftermath of the disappearance of the independent Kingdom of Navarre in 1521. Actually, the town provided critical naval help to the Spanish king on the frontier disputes that took place in Hondarribia, which earned the town the titles Muy Noble y Muy Leal, recorded on its coat of arms. Moreover, the town took sides with the new Emperor Charles V by sending a party to the Battle of Noan and providing help to the emperor against the revolt of the Comuneros. After the conquest of the Iberian Navarre and the attachment of Donostia to Gipuzkoa, Gascons, who had played a leading role in the political and economic life of the town since its foundation, began to be excluded from influential public positions by means of a string of regional sentences upheld by royal decision. Meanwhile, the climate of war and disease left the town in a poor condition that drove many fishermen and traders to take to the sea as corsairs as a way of getting a living, most of the times under the auspices of the King Philip II of Spain, who benefited from the disruption caused to and wealth obtained from the French and Dutch trade ships. In 1656, the city was used as the royal headquarters during the marriage of the Infanta to Louis XIV at Saint-Jean-de-Luz nearby. After a relatively peaceful 17th century, the town was besieged and taken over by the troops of the French Duke of Berwick up to 1721. However, San Sebastian was not spared by shelling in the French assault, and many urban structures were reconstructed, e.g., a new opening in the middle of the town, the Plaza Barrier. In 1728, the Real Compañía Gipuzkoana de Caracas was founded and boosted commerce with the Americas. Thanks to the profit the company generated, the town underwent some urban reforms and improvements, and the new Santa Maria Church was erected by subscription. This period of wealth and development was to last up to the end of 18th century. In 1808, Napoleonic forces captured San Sebastian in the Peninsular War. In 1813, after a siege of various weeks, on the 28th of August, during the night, a landing party from a British Royal Navy squadron captured Santa Clara Island, in the bay, situated on a narrow promontory that jutted out into the sea between the waters of the Bay of Biscay and the broad estuary of the Urumayo River. The town was hard to get at and well fortified. It was the strongest fortification I ever saw, Gibraltar excepted, wrote William Dent. 3 days later, on the 31st of August, British and Portuguese troops besieging San Sebastian assaulted the town. The relieving troops ransacked and burnt the city to the ground. Only the street at the foot of the hill remained. Contemporary history. After the destructive events, the reconstruction of the city was decided in the same spot with an only slightly altered layout, since a modern octagonal draft project by the architect P.M. Ugarte was turned down, and eventually M. Gogajar's blueprint was approved, while supervised and implemented by the former. This area, the old part, oozes neoclassical, austere and systematic style in its architectural construction. The Constitution Square was built in 1817 and the Town Hall between 1828 and 1832. Housing works were carried out gradually during various decades, until they were achieved. The liberal and bourgeois San Sebastian became capital of Gipuzkoa until 1823, when absolutists assailed the town again, but it was made capital city again in 1854. In 1833, British volunteers under Sir George de Lacy Evans defended the town against Carlist attack, and the fallen were buried at the English cemetery on the hill Urgel. At the beginning of the 19th century, the local government was still ruled on the principle of nobility, while the inhabitants of foreign origin or descent had always been ubiquitous in the town, especially the traders. Although San Sebastian benefited greatly from the charts system established in the Basque country, the town was at odds with the more traditional Gipuzkoa, even requesting the detachment from the province and the annexation to Navarre in 1841. In 1863, the defensive walls of the town were demolished and an expansion of the town began in an attempt to escape the military function it had held before. Works were appointed to José Gocoa and Ramon Cortázar, who modeled the new city according to an orthogonal shape much in a neoclassical Parisian style, and the former designed elegant buildings, like the Miramar Palace or the Conca Promenade. The city was chosen by the Spanish monarchy to spend the summer following the French example of the near Biarritz. Subsequently, the Spanish nobility and the diplomatic corps opened residences in the summer capital. As the wave baths at La Conca conflicted with shipbuilding activity, shipyards relocated to Passau, a near bay formerly part of San Sebastian. However, in 1875, war battered the town again, and shelling over the city by Carlists caused acclaimed Bacelari and poet Villain Tx to die in 1876. As of 1885, King Alfonso XII of Spain's widow Maria Cristina spent her summer in Donostia on a yearly basis, bringing along her retinue. In 1887, the casino was erected, which eventually turned into the current city hall, and somewhat later the regional government's building was completed in the Gipuzkoa Plaza following José Goicoe's design. Cultural life thrived on this period, giving rise to various typical events in the city, such as the calderos of the temporada, and journalistic and literary productions both in Spanish and Basque. After much debate within the city over its vocation, either tourism or manufacturing, Donostia developed into a fully fledged seaside resort. But some industry developed in the district of Antigua and outskirts of the city. Following the outbreak of World War I, San Sebastián became an attracting focus for renowned international figures of culture and politics, e.g. Mata Hari, Leon Trotsky, Maurice Ravel, Romanones, etc. Various rationalist architectural landmarks, typically white or light-owned, were erected and dotted the urban landscape in the 20s and 30s. In 1924 to 1926, works to canalize the Urumaia River were carried out on the southern tip of the city. However, after the city's Belle Époque in the European wartime, repression under Miguel Primo de Rivera's dictatorship didn't favor the city. In 1924, gambling was prohibited by the authoritarian regime, causing the Grand Casino and the Cursal to struggle to survive. In 1930, Spanish Republican forces signed up the Pact of San Sebastián, leading to the Second Spanish Republic. Unrest and repression did not stop with the new political regime, and large-scale industrial action was taken several times by the growing anarchist, communist and socialist unions. The 1936 military coup was initially defeated by resistance led by the Basque nationalists, anarchists and communists, but later that year the province fell to Spanish nationalist forces during the Northern Campaign. The occupation proved disastrous for the city dwellers. Between 1936 and 1943, 485 people were executed as a result of pseudo-trials by the Spanish nationalists, including the mayor. Extrajudicial executions by the rebel-occupying military account for an estimate of over 600 individuals murdered in the area during the first months. Many children were evacuated to temporary safety in Bilbao, with the city draining on an exodus estimated at 40,000 to 50,000 inhabitants. In the aftermath of war, the city was stricken by poverty, famine and repression, coupled with thriving smuggling. Many Republican detainees were held at the Ondarrita prison in grim and humid conditions right at the beach with the same name. However, industry developed and paved the way for the urban expansion in the popular district Higia and eclectic style de Maraberi, on the marshes and riverbed of the Urumaia at the end of the 1940s and beginning of the 1950s. In 1943, the seeds of the Basque language schools were being sown by Elvira Zipitria, who started to give instruction in Basque at her own house in the old part. In 1947, the Grand Casino was turned into the City Hall. A decade later, in 1953, businessmen from the city organized the first San Sebastián International Film Festival to stimulate the economic life and national and international profile of the city. The massive immigration from various parts of Spain, spurred by growing industrial production, greatly increased population, in turn bringing about a quick and chaotic urban development on the outskirts of the city, but social, cultural and political contradictions and inequities followed, so sparking dissatisfaction. A general climate of protest and street demonstrations ensued, driven run by Basque nationalists and underground unions, triggering in 1968 the first state of emergency in Gipuzkoa. Several more were imposed by the Francoist authorities in the run-up to the dictator's death in 1975. In the middle of the shaky economic situation and real estate speculation, the iconic buildings Kursaal and Chauffeur Bullring in Gross were demolished in 1973. On the other hand, sculptor Eduardo Chiladas and architect Peñaganchegui's landmark The Comb of the Winds was built at the bay's western tip. The 1970s to the mid-1980s were years of general urban and social decay marked by social and political unrest and violence. In 1979, the first democratic municipal elections were held, won by the Basque Nationalist Party, who held office along with splinter party Eusko Alkartasuna until 1991. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party's Odiner Lorza took over as mayor that year until 2011, when he was overthrown unexpectedly in elections by Juan Carlos Izaguirre. As of the 1990s, a major makeover of the city centre was undertaken aimed at enhancing and revamping the neoclassical and modernist side of San Sebastian's architecture. Other milestone works include the reshape and enlargement of the Zuriola Beach and Promenade and the inauguration of the Kursaal Palace Cubes, or the new university campus and technological facilities in Ibarrieta, the provision of a wide bike lane network, underground car parks and significant public transport improvements. Districts of cutting-edge design have been erected, such as Ibarrieta or Ribeiras de Loyola, while some important projects hang on the balance prompted by financial tensions.